Welcome to the Real Estate Show. From buying to selling and everything in between. Rochester's home for everything real estate. And now, your hosts from the Anthony Butera team of Keller Williams Realty, Greater Rochester. It's Anthony Butera and Jason Mancuso.
Hello, everybody. Mark Myra here. Anthony Butera, Jason Mancuso here as well from the Anthony Butera team. Episode 15 of the podcast. Things just starting to warm up. Does this change anything? You guys...
Yeah,
real estate wise or just life wise?
we sweat more this time of year, right?
Yeah, actually, I had our assistant order a team deodorant stick yesterday.
You need that.
Yeah, he calls it a team deodorant stick. It's just for him, but
It's open. Everybody can use it if they want.
well, no one's gonna use it.
Hygiene is important in this business.
You don't want a sweaty real estate agent showing you around?
Not
Okay.
a sweaty, stinky real estate.
Not on our team.
Yeah.
The weather changes things for real estate, of course. Now we're finally starting to see these the sellers they're coming out of the woodwork. So not going to fix this market, but maybe stabilize it a little bit. So
Yeah, I think that would be the hope, right?
yeah,
Because, I mean, it's been what usually is year after year. Like, April's really the month. Well, April was shot this year as far as weather. So that kept people in and wait, maybe the flowers will bloom and get the house on the market then.
Sure.
So May's really going to be a telling month as to whether this market is, going to remain the same or if it is going to, I guess, shift back to a little bit of stability and get rid of some of the craziness that's been going on the last couple of years. But
Just on a local level, because it happened last year where, was it Lake Ontario where people's houses were getting swallowed up?
sure.
Can you see if that actually hurts those houses? Do people not just want to buy that anymore? Is that done?
Last year.
yeah, for
Just
sure.
that one incident.
Well, it's not the one incident. I mean, it's still and they're
Still happening.
Yeah, it's still high
yeah.
this year, but
they're anticipating the same issues this year.
well, what happened last year was the water level's been increasingly high, and there's all this stuff with the St. Lawrence River that I'm not an expert on. I'm not even going to get into.
Montreal.
But big debate around that as to who's actually controlling it. But last year in April, I can't remember if it was early May or not, but we just got dumped. Well, we had the end of the year snowstorm.
Yeah.
And then that melted, and then it was just like, if you remember, just rain nonstop. So that just extra water, right? So it was a major problem. It definitely affected lakefront sales. I mean,
People are super cautious right now, and I know that there's plans, there's grant money. They don't know what that's going to turn into. So with unknowns and with uncertainty, you eliminate consumer confidence and just buying that that lakefront house. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some houses on the shoreline that.
right.
If the lake raised 10 feet, it wouldn't affect them.
Yeah.
But the ones that, they love the fact that they walk out of their back slider and the lake's right there.
Yeah, no,
now the lake is in your living room.
I would say definitely asterisk that the majority of the properties are not affected. But there's, what catches the news is a select few neighborhoods or streets where it's like, this is a huge problem. My house is going to be engulfed.
I just remember the footage of one dude, he had a deck attached to his house, the back of his house, and the land was falling, so it was pulling the house.
Yeah.
And so the footage is him with a chainsaw, just taking out his deck.
out, yeah.
I just gotta get rid of this.
I mean, it's awful. It's an awful problem if you're that guy, right? Or if you're in that neighborhood. I can't imagine what that's like. But there's also it's just like we're going to be listing one where it's a beautiful home far enough away from the water, but on the water where even last year when it was at its peak of being a problem, not even close to being anywhere near the house. So consumers, there's always going to be a market for that as far as whether you just want to live there year round or you need the vacation home or whatever. Consumers are going to be wary now of, okay, what was it like last year? How far did this water get? If you're nowhere near it, all right, I should be safe.
Sure.
If it's, it was butting right against the house, then that house probably isn't going to sell.
Some people have secured the grant money for a break wall,
Right.
or whatever whatever they're willing to do to rectify it. There's a lot of people, believe it or not, that did not fill out this application that went out. They just assumed, they've lost faith because they've been burned. So they're like, I'm not going to bother filling this paperwork up. But for those that did, there's there is grant money for a break wall. Now, does that mean that that's going to be like a pretty poured concrete break wall? No, it's probably just going to be very large boulders
that tires.
Because really it's like, last year it was the wave effect that was really affecting these houses. It wasn't just the water rising, which again, with this water, it just proves that the earth is flat.
Yeah.
If this has taught us anything in Rochester, the earth is flat.
Yeah.
We next week Al Gore's coming on the show too.
Yeah,
he is.
Is he a flat earther, or this will just be him? Like, look, I was right with this whole inconvenient truth thing.
Yeah,
sorry about your lake house.
Yeah, he claims the lake levels on the melting icebergs.
Yeah, well, we have a big iceberg in the middle of Lake Ontario. It's been melting.
It had started in Colorado, and Lake Mead made its way over to Black Creek in Churchville, Chile.
Oh yeah, Black Creek really did extend to my backyard.
Yes,
for a while last year. I remember that happening.
Yeah, a little wet, but
well, what do we want to talk? We want to talk about how buyers are negotiating the seller's market right now, right?
Yeah, really how to combat and how to maneuver in this seller's market. Little, tricks of the trade, stuff that we talk about with our agents all the time. So not only sharing the information with them and like how to win a deal in this market, but just exploiting the truths in this market. There's so many assumptions, and I think that so many agents they're presenting offers out of fear, and there's a lot of assumptions.
Right.
And this year, I don't think there's, at least in Rochester, of course I can't speak for other markets, but I don't think there's ever been a year in Rochester real estate, especially when I talk to some of the old timers that have been in the business 35 plus years, there's never been a year where business is being done so much different than it's ever been done. And everyone thinks, oh, I know what I can do to fix this. Yeah. I'll do this. I'll hold off showings for 10 days and I'll build up this anxiety around this property where everyone's going to count down to 10 days. And then they're realizing that, you know what? I just lost 50% of those buyers. They all just bought something while I was waiting 10 days to try to build up this.
Everybody, it's such an, I'm going to try to avoid the term crazy as much as possible, but it's such an interesting market that now everybody's left to, okay, let's reinvent the wheel and figure out a different way to get the best offer for this house possible if you're a seller.
Yeah, and there's a lot of rolling the dice, I feel like. There's a lot of people that are taking chances. There's a lot of agents that I feel like are taking chances. And, what I always say is, listen, as long as what you're doing you feel is the best bet to net your sellers the top dollar amount and not necessarily get 90 people through an open house so you can try to pick up 35 new buyers, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if those are your intentions, they're self-serving intentions if you're going to hold off showings until then. But if the intent is to build a buzz, that's great. And in the past, we can talk about instances where creating that buzz has happened, right? Because it's human nature that everybody wants what everybody else wants, right? So we get that all the time where a buyer will look at one of our properties and the house is a perfect fit for them. And their first question is, what's wrong with the house? Nothing. Why would you say that? Well, no one else bought it. Okay, well, you're the right buyer for this house. What if it's as simple as that, right? Mm-hmm. So now with the market where it is, whenever we've got a listing and, on top of the market conditions where it's a seller's market, an all-time extreme seller's market, all-time lack of inventory market, we're trying to figure out how to do it the right way. And really, we'd be lying if we said that we've been doing it the right way. I think we've had instances where we've gone live on a Friday and held off showings until a Sunday, and you get 40, 50 people to come through the open house. And although there's a fine line between buyers thinking that, wow, this house is desirable, but when there's when there's 10 groups in the house at one time, I think you're scaring the buyers more than you're attracting them because, again, it's perception. And the perception is, listen, we love the house. Of course we'd love to have it. Everybody wants this house. Right. I do not want to get involved into a bidding war. Yep. And it kind of just happened to us. We did it. It's what our sellers wanted to do. They asked us, and they talked to their friends, and their friends did it, and they found success in it. So we did it. And what ended up happening is there was so many people, and there was such a buzz that it created fear in the buyers to write an offer, because they just assumed that the house was going to go for like $25,000, $30,000 over asking price. And it wasn't the case. It sold right around where it was listed for, and the agent that wrote the offer, he ignored the noise, and he just wrote the offer, and it got accepted. But
sorry to interrupt.
No, wait.
A preface to that conversation to be continued. If you're buying a house, don't put an offer in a house unless you want to buy that house.
Yeah.
So first step, I like the house or I don't like the house. If you don't like it, it's off the table, you move on. If you're buying a house, you need to like this house. There's no I don't know, maybe I'm just too blunt, but there's no gray area. Maybe I'll take it. Let's throw on an offer, see if it sticks. You have to be, this has to be your home moving forward. This isn't a pair of shoes, right? So, you have to be ready to commit to this. So with that said, if you're going out and you're making an offer and you hear that it's a competitive situation, there's multiple offers. I've beaten a dead horse. I've probably said in this show, if you're listening to the show and you've dealt with me, you've probably heard it from me.
Has anyone ever beaten a dead horse? Where did that start from?
No comment.
There's some websites with categories on it. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
If you're making an offer in a multiple offer situation, it to some degree doesn't really matter any other detail except what are you willing to pay for the house, and make sure that there's other offers. They could be higher or lower than yours, but you just have to put your best foot forward. I always say make an offer that you're okay with losing, meaning that if you lose, let the other person have it. They're overpaying. I don't want to pay that.
Yeah.
Have at it, And if you get it, you're happy. Don't make an offer where it's like, oh, I wish I would, I could have offered $5,000 more. That may have won it, because that very well may have won it, and now you're ticked again with the notion you want that house. So this doesn't apply to just like, maybe I'll take it. Let's throw in an offer for $100, see what happens.
And then the human mind is funny, because the psychology around it is you'll find out in situations like that, right? There was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, 20 offers, and yours gets accepted, and you call your buyer and you say, hey, congratulations, you guys got your offer accepted. And instead of like the exuberance, right, like we're thrilled, thank you so much, like I think in many cases their initial gut reaction is, oh God, we overpaid for this place.
Why did I do
right?
that?
Why did I do this? And like you'll get situations in that where like that winning offer will end up getting cold feet because they did get the house.
Yeah.
And, if it was worth that much today and you love that house, then go after it. You know what I mean? If you're buying the house with intent to sell in 3 years, then maybe you shouldn't be buying a house, right? So you're looking at the long term.
Yeah. And again, it just comes back to make an offer that you're okay with. If you get the call, hey, you won. Awesome.
Yeah.
Not, I didn't really want to do that. Well, then why did you do it?
Yeah.
Just, again, it's a house, not a car even, right? This is for, I would say, 99% of the people out there, buying a home is the biggest financial investment play, whatever you want to call it, of your life.
Yeah.
Anytime you buy a home. Most people aren't dabbling with $100,000 investments here and there. So it's like, this is a huge thing, and you shouldn't just be out there just, worried about what other people are doing, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
You need to worry about yourself and be okay with what you're getting into. So that if you win that offer, awesome, thrilled. If you lose it, let them have it. I'm not willing to pay what somebody else was willing to pay.
A lot of times what happens too, and it's just, listen, there's a lot of real estate agents. Rochester's, we're not a top 10 city, population wise, right? So there's just almost 3,000 licensed real estate agents in Rochester, if you can imagine that. And there's a lot of agents that are just, they're servants and they're not educators, right? We have to educate our people in the process. And I can tell from an offer the servant, and I can tell from an offer the educational, confident real estate agent that had a heart-to-heart, a fierce conversation with their sellers and kept them abreast as to what the market's doing right now. Here's why we have to do it. I need to get your guys' mindset ready for this market, right? I mean, I don't want to send you out there, right? I'm not going to send you to Afghanistan until you go to boot camp first. So boot camp is going to look like me explaining what this market's doing for you and to you right now. So it's, it's the strength of the agent too that's going to increase your chances of getting an accepted offer. And as on the listing sides, Jason and I, you're you're the monster no matter what you do. Like, you can't win, but when you have multiple offers and you got to make all those phone calls to let the other agents know that, hey, listen, I appreciate you writing. You wrote a good offer. Unfortunately, there was an offer out there that it was just my sellers could not take. And instead of, I know it's tough to be gracious in that moment because you just lost and they're already thinking, great, I got to get back out there with these buyers again. I would just say, for the agents, be gracious with that phone call because you never know, the next house they might be that agent's listing. And
or that deal could die too.
That deal could die. And, the other thing too is like I'm advising, write a backup offer. No one's doing that, but a deal could die. I just had a deal die over sometimes they'll point to a reason that's not the real reason. They just want out, but they have to point to something else. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not you, it's me.
Yeah.
So with that being said, it's educating the buyers and the buyers going into this market knowing what the conditions are.
What's a backup offer? So let's say you lose, you put in an offer, but you lose the bid.
Or even if something's already accepted, like you call an agent, schedule a showing, we can't, or you've seen it already and you're too late to the dance and it's already accepted. You can still put in an offer subject to, cancellation of another offer. An agent legally has to present that offer to the sellers. They can't just, swindle and get out of the first deal just to take yours. But, I mean, if anything, as a buyer, you're pushing that deal that much further along because that buyer's going to be told, hey, do your inspection, but we've got somebody else interested, so
sure,
or get off the pot.
Yeah.
So there's we could talk for the next 5 shows of, you mentioned tricks of the trade of what to do, but there is, again, boils back down, do you want the house or not? Okay, if you want it, this is a used house. You want something brand new for $150,000, go get a hammer and some wood.
Yep.
Otherwise, this is a used house. You have to understand that it's not going to be perfect. It's our job, again, to educate it, from the start. Here's what's going on with it. Here's what you can expect. We always lay out a budget. You got to do this right away. You're doing this 3 years from now. You're doing this 10 years from now. So you're going into a home inspection. Again, we've talked about this before, but, just to find out there's nothing major. You can't come back and expect to have the leverage on your side to try to renegotiate something minor from a home inspection. Yeah. So do you want the house or not? I bought my house. There's a list a mile long of stuff wrong with it. I wanted the house. I don't care. It's used. I'm not building. I don't have the budget to build something new. I understand what I'm getting into. That's the way it needs to be. You either want the house or you don't. And it's, again, I hate to be blunt, but I feel like the buying pool gets away from that a little bit and just feels like, let me play the game and try to negotiate. Circle back to the open house with 90 people in it. We've all heard of it in this market. That's, rightfully so. The agents that are experiencing that are marketing it to make them, they know what they're doing. They're driving traffic. We do it too. As a buyer, who cares? You either want the house or you don't.
Yeah.
And you're making the offer that you're okay with losing and that you're okay with winning. So, don't worry about what's going on. It's our job as agents to figure that out and try to advise you based on as much as we can find out. And, hey, this is what I think could have a chance at winning.
Yeah.
But, and we may tell you something that you're not okay with price-wise or turn-wise. And you may tell us, go in and it's $20,000 higher than what we're advising you to, and we'll let you know that. Like you're telling me you're only going to be here 5 years and you want to pay this, you're nuts. We'll tell you that. And, that usually resonates, and people make the decision to not move forward off of that. But we're here to make sure that you're making the right play. But what happens with this frenzy of a market, buyers are just spooking themselves into thinking something that's not. Yeah. Usually what happens with the 90 people open house example, 85 of them would actually buy the house for what it sold for. But only 5 of them came to the table with an offer because the other 80 were scared out of their minds that I don't even want to try because it's going to sell for $20,000 more than what I'm willing to pay. Yeah, when in reality it sold for what they were willing to pay.
Yeah, and you'll find that typically the offer that gets accepted a lot of times is a buyer that has lost out on a couple of deals and is just done dicking around, and they're just saying, listen,
let's get aggressive.
This is the house. I'm not willing to lose another house. We need to move. This is part of our game plan, so we're going to do that. We're going to move forward. If I were a buyer, a lot of these listings now, they go live on Thursday or Friday and no showings until the open house Saturday or Sunday, right? So if there's no showings until Sunday, 2 to 4, I would probably advise my buyer to get there at about 3:55. Don't go at 2 o'clock. Because you're going to pull up to a scene with 25 cars, and you're going to be...
Looks like a graduation party.
Yeah, you're going to be overwhelmed. Because I will say that as much as I still think people should step up to the plate and stop making assumptions as to what the house is going to sell for, or that you have no chance at it, just go there towards the end so there's not as many people. Because I truly do believe that the experience of looking at a home privately with your agent, with no noise or distractions, you can actually concentrate on the home, because all you hear when you're in those situations is people eavesdropping on other people, trying to figure out I just overheard that couple. They said they're going to be making an offer, and I just heard from that couple, and that guy just said that there's foundation issues. What do we do? You know what I mean? That's so
Well, and there's also gamesmanship involved now too in that situation. There's probably the guy who's saying, "Oh yeah, look at this foundation, must be shot."
Yeah.
Hear that, guys? And then scare, and then he sneaks in there. Yeah. But it's a interesting world out there.
Yeah.
That we live in. But and the other thing too is that keep in mind. I mentioned the example before, 90 people in an open house, 80 people wanted to buy it. Well, in reality, probably half of those people that are at the open house are just there to be nosy neighbors.
Oh, yeah.
They're not even in the market
to buy. Have to consider that as well. How many of those people are actually pre-qualified buyers? How many have any intent of buying in the next year? You could probably cut that crowd in half.
Right.
So your serious buyers are, they're going to go in there, and hopefully their agents are training them how to combat this current market. It's tough. It's not easy being a buyer in this market. That's it's probably more difficult than it's ever been. But educating your buyers on how to adapt to it is very, very important.
The other thing, we keep talking about open houses, but if there's the property that comes on the market and there is no open house or anything, you got to be the first person in the door. Yeah. And if you want it, you got to be the first person at the table. You cannot be the buyer who expects, you're going to lose out. Because if it's listed on Tuesday and you think, okay, I'll go see it this weekend, it's sold. But what I'm trying to say is that there's value as the listing agent and us representing the seller. Hey, this guy called us literally within 3 minutes when it went live. They want to get in as soon as possible. They got in. They got us a strong offer right away. These people clearly want this house. They're set up right. They're being advised right. They're doing what they can to get it. I love that.
Yeah.
Versus, 3 days later, hey, we kind of want to see this house. And, 3 days after that, we put in an offer. It just doesn't show the seller any sort of motivation or that you actually want the house. In a world where everybody's kind of, cold feet, so to speak.
Yeah, and to share some more info with the buyers, and I do have an issue with this. You wouldn't believe the amount of agents that sold the house on a Wednesday, and they still hold the open house on a Sunday. They keep the listing active, so the buyers are saying, hey, it's still for sale. We'll go to the open house on Sunday. I haven't seen any status change. So these agents will still hold the open house, break the news to the buyers there and say, hey, listen, unfortunately, this house is already sold, but I have a few coming up. Does your agent that you're working with have a few coming up? Like, they're creating doubt, and they're, I think it's dirty. And when I do call agents out, and or whether I'm helping one of the buyer specialists on my team write the offer, I'll have them put in the offer that under contingency, seller shall cancel open house for the weekend, and then the agents will come back. Well, I've already advertised this house, and it's going to be in the paper on Saturday. Well, number one, why are you still putting stuff in the paper? Mm-hmm. Number two, I don't care if it's in the paper. Have a sign rider made that says open house canceled and sold. Mm-hmm. I don't, you know what I mean? It's just, it's not right, because number one, if I'm a consumer and I'm walking in and you're still holding that open house, although it's sold, my immediate thought about you is, why would you do this? You know what I mean? You lose trust. You know what I mean? Relationship is built on trust, and your goal is to find new buyers from that open house. Are you really serving your sellers, or are you serving yourself? Right. And that's the question I always ask. What are your intentions? Are they self-serving intentions, or is it to truly help your sellers? So it's a tricky market. Honestly, like 3 years ago, none of this stuff was going on. It was black and white.
Yeah.
And now it's...
I mean, that's a great way to describe it.
Yeah.
Just cut and dry, black and white, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And now it's just like, let's figure something new out. And it's week by week. We see a new trend literally every week. It's like, I haven't seen that before. That's a good one.
New verbiage. Yeah. Someone's attorney told them to add this into the contract. Right. And they were convinced that would secure the deal. And then another attorney is going to say that means absolutely nothing. I'm going to disapprove this contract. It's like, listen, it's a world of gray area right now.
And that's why, again, to hammer the point home, if you're a buyer, do you want the house or not?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And if you do what you're advised to do to get it. And don't try to, I really want a fence permit, or just the stuff that at the end of the day doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of life. Mm-hmm. Do you want the house or not? This is your home for your family, or whatever your situation is.
Yeah.
This is where you have to live. And this is, again, the biggest investment of your life.
Yeah.
I'm not saying go out there wild, wild west and do things that aren't going to protect yourself, but there's certain things that you just don't need to worry about in this process that, if you do worry about, will cost you the deal. And now you lost out on the house that you want. And now you got to go find one in a market where there isn't a lot to find to begin with.
Yeah. Certain buyers, they feel that your education is persuasion, and it's really not. We're just trying to let you know where the market is at. Okay, right. So if I was working with a family member, my advice to them, listen, you want this house, or you want to be able to get a house in this market, whether it's a family member or not, I would be bold enough to say this to any buyer. Do you have somebody in your life that would purchase the house cash, and you could take a mortgage out after the fact and pay them back? Do you have somebody in your life that will give you some closing costs in the form of a loan, so you don't have to go in at a FHA 3.5% down buyer? Is there somebody in their life that will let you borrow that money so you could be a 20% down conventional buyer? Like, you almost, as a consumer, you have to turn your salesperson's head on. You got to turn that on while you're going through this. And the ones that have been burned, they start getting creative. Right. They start doing things that they wouldn't originally have felt comfortable doing, because they finally get a feel for the market. Mm-hmm. So,
and if you can't get creative, you'll still have success.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But beating a dead horse again.
Yeah.
Do you want the house or not?
Sure.
Act based on that. If you don't want the house, on to the next.
Yeah. And if
you
you're
want it, okay, buck up, let's get it done.
Sure. And if you're advertising in the paper for your open house, or you're looking for the open houses in the newspaper,
call us.
No, actually,
That's the place to do
yeah,
it.
no, don't call us, but I'll come to your calling hours because it's probably a few years to road. But I hope that helped. Not only from an agent standpoint, but a consumer standpoint. And, we don't want to sound harsh. We just want to relay the harsh market.
Well, and you mentioned harsh. It is, but I think it's driven by perception. And there's the perception of this crazy market. And, in a lot of ways it is. But in a lot of ways it's also just overplayed. Mm-hmm. You can get through it. If you want to. If you want to get caught up and think that I have no chance of winning and I'll step off to the sidelines, that's going to happen every house because there is a crazy perception for every listing that's out there. So
cool. Check it out, AnthonyButteraTeam.com. We got the Real Estate Show tab there. You can follow us on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or follow us on Facebook as well. And talk to either Anthony or Jason if you're looking at buying and selling.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to The Real Estate Show. Find us on Facebook, iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube. If you're looking to sell or buy, talk to the Anthony Butera team of Keller Williams Realty, Greater Rochester. Visit AnthonyButteraTeam.com.